the clarity that comes from stepping away, this brain I have now that I'm operating with, it ain't the same as it was. It's different, because I've been able to move the burden of, the burden of the competing and all of the day-to-day and all of the things that were going on to the side. The lessons from early on are stronger than ever. My desire to get back into where it comes from is more important to me than ever. And the work that I'm doing going forward in the months ahead is going right back to and revisiting and hopefully rekindling tons of stuff that comes from a really special place.
Welcome back or welcome to Y Option. I am your host, Yogi Roth, and it is here. It is game week. Let's go. I'm coming to you from the state of Oregon right now, getting a chance to call the Nike Kickoff Classic. And what's fun is that I'm going to be back in this state later this week, calling the home opener for your national championship contending, yes, Oregon Ducks. But today's guest is a guy who knows a thing or two about a national championship and a Super Bowl. We have been teasing this episode for a while. It is by far the one that I enjoyed the most thus far. In what are we, Jim Thornby, who joins us now? Almost 2 months in to this?
Not quite. Maybe 6 weeks.
Okay, 6 weeks in. This has been my favorite conversation, one of my favorite people of all time. And it's the guy who changed my life in Pete Carroll. Yes, the former head coach at the Seattle Seahawks, the USC Trojans, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets. His career, if you follow football at all, you have an idea of how special he is. And if you know me at all, you know how special he was in my life. So, Jim, it's game week. We had a lot of games, of course, to talk about. There was week 0 games this past weekend. But this episode, you were there for this conversation with Pete. What'd you think about it in real time? And then as we prep all of our listeners for this conversation presented by our founding partner 76, what are you most excited for people to hear?
Well, it's funny because, full disclosure, as an Arizona alum who lived in LA during your guys' whole run there, he was definitely not at the top of my favorites list, but getting to spend that time with him that day, his grandson was in the room, watching, Brennan's son was in the room watching that interview. It was really cool. I mean, no lie. It's funny because, the whole, there's still rivalries. And even though for the most part, USC would put it on Arizona all this time, you still consider a rival because USC was that program, especially during the Pete Carroll years. But just getting to see him more as a human being, not as a quasi mythical feature that you see on the sidelines winning football games. It was really cool. And it was really cool to experience your relationship with him and the mutual love and respect that you both have for each other. It was really cool. I mean, I'm going to preface this right here. This isn't really an interview. This is just all of us getting to hang out, listening to the two of you talk about football, life, and philosophy. So it's a different take, but it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, there was news with Coach Carroll, of course, last week, coming back to be a professor at SC. It's something that, as he referenced with our friend Softy up in Seattle on the radio, it was something in the works for a long time. And that was the first time he ever talked to anybody. We're the first interview that he's done with anyone. And knowing him, I got to imagine it's probably going to be one of the last ones that he decides to do because he's having a good time here in retirement. I think from my lens in this conversation, and we shared a little bit as you'll listen or as you watch here at yoption.com, it was really a powerful conversation for me, Jim, because I had known Coach Carroll since I was 19, right? As a young college athlete. Brennan, his oldest son, played at Pitt. He really endeared me as I walked on. Brennan was the first guy I literally met watching film in Sutherland Hall. And he came up and said, "What are you doing here?" It was before early enrollees were a thing. I was a summer enrollee because I knew I had to get a head start if I wanted a chance to compete as a walk-on, let alone eventually play in Ernest Golly, etc. And then when Brennan graduated, I would go out to USC every spring break, and I would work out there. I would go out there every summer to Manhattan Beach, and I would train there and work their summer camps. And that's where I got to meet people like Mark Jackson, who's an athletic director of Villanova currently, Steve Sarkisian, the head coach of Texas, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, Norm Chow. You just got to meet like basically guys that were just going to become rock stars in all of college football. Heck, I met Jason Eck, the head coach at Idaho, who's playing Oregon this weekend. When I was at SC, we would all be working summer camps alongside Jonathan Smith and the Idaho staff and Nick Holt at the time, if you remember that name. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Pete took the clay that my parents created and in my 20s really shaped it in a really beautiful way. So much so that I would often call friends of mine and say, God, I wish you could be around this guy. I wish all of us, you included, in your 20s, had someone like Pete Carroll mentoring you and guiding you and shaping you and challenging you. We wrote about it in a recent newsletter of, my style as an analyst. And he asked me, what's your style, your vision, your theme, your philosophy? Just like you would ask all the coaches. And he'd make you present it to him, and then he would critique you and coach you. That was my 20s. And then I got into my 30s. And then he started coaching me on my marriage, right? And on life. And then we got to this conversation. And I really believe that when you're around mentors, and all of you listening and watching, think of the people that mentored you or your high school coach. When you're around them, you could be in your 40s and they could be in their 80s. I feel there's a version of us that goes right back to our formative years, high school, mentorship, whatever you were in that relationship at that stage. And this was the first time that I felt like Pete and I really were able to go there on a lot of topics for me as an adult, right? For me as a guy in my 40s, as a father and as a husband. And it might be the most beautiful conversation I've ever had with anybody outside of like my wife. No offense, Jim. We talk all the time, but
yeah, we're good.
but I really mean that. It was so powerful for me to be able to sit across from him in this very intimate setting at the Elite 11 finals this summer and ask him questions that I didn't know the answers to. And it's always been the one rule I have as an interviewer is ask questions you don't know the answers to. And to your point, it was such a fun conversation because, he and I would spend time a couple times a year. I'd have a game at UW. I'd go visit the Seahawks, and you'd compete for your 20 minutes together at night, where it was just one-on-one. We hadn't been able to sit and connect in a moment like this in a while. And I think when we left, we felt like you just described. We were like, that was really cool. That was really cool. So we could talk about it a ton, but let's let you listen to it. So on behalf of our founding partner 76, I want to present to you one of my favorite conversations I've ever had with a guy who's impacted my life in ways that no one has had. And that is head coach, a guy who will always be a head coach in my eyes. And now I guess you can call him professor, but always a teacher, Pete Carroll.
Hit it. So I wanted to go down memory lane for a minute. I remember the first true conversation you and I had. You probably don't. I was 19. It was at Chart House. And I was still playing. I was out here for spring break. And you're year 2 or 3 at SC, whatever it was. And you said, yo, over like a bad salad. You said, what do you want to do in your life? And I said, I just want to impact the world in a really cool way. Not know where the hell that came from.
Way too mature for that moment.
And you said, okay. You said, all you have to do is create value. Don't worry about climbing the ladder of success rung by rung. Just go create value. I was like, okay, what does that really mean? And it was basically like, hey, you're a walk-on. Like, we'll get 1 rep, get 2 reps, get 3, and then cut to working for you. That to me was like a staple that I really took away of stapling practice scripts every day. Like, really, like, are you competing or you're not? And I say that to you of like, you probably don't remember that story. If you do, I'd be curious if your salad was as average as mine. But in addition, where did that come from for you? Because I've quoted that story dozens, if not hundreds of times.
I don't remember the salad. Okay, I do remember visiting with you on it. Well, the whole thought is really a much bigger thought. It's the thought is that you have the opportunity to control your world. There's a lot of things you can't control, but those that you can, take charge of it, own it, and do the best you can with it. And creating your own value is like, you may have a job that doesn't look like it's this great job and anybody's paying any attention to you, but if you just kick butt in how you do it and you take great pride in it and you respect the heck out of that opportunity, somebody is eventually going to say, hey, what's going on over here? And you get their attention. You make make yourself visible in an environment that maybe other people just say, it's not that big a deal, and they don't go for it. So it's really, it's an empowering thought. Take charge, take control of it, and you make something out of it, and you'd be surprised what'll happen. Because to do that, you got to have attitude. You gotta have an attitude, and that's what comes across, I think, and that's what is extremely valuable getting started.
Keep going on that. Like that. I mean, I haven't interviewed you probably in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that coming in. Like we just talk. Like, and a lot of it is because I'm like kind of have an idea what you might say.
Yeah.
Or
sure
we don't
you
want to
do.
record it. Right? One of those. But this is fun for me because I'm like, wow, framework. I haven't done this in a long time, and I worked for you in my 20s. I've always said that you took the clay that my parents created and molded it. Like you challenged me on style, vision, theme, philosophy, like all the stuff that we wrote about in your book, and you've curated over the course of your lifetime. And now, like I'm a dad with 2 kids and a family, and like you're trying to do the same as head coach of a flag team,
Yeah.
But how does that land on you for somebody that you really impacted 20 plus years ago? And the thing that I still pull out is like, just go create value, man. Like as a broadcaster, as a dad, whatever. And of all the things you've taught me, I think that is like the thing that lands the most.
Well, the principle of it is really powerful. Again, I go back to it, you realize that you're the one that's in charge of your life, and so do something about it. Get after it. And how are you going to do that? Well, a simple thought to me is, just do really well at what you're doing until somebody notices, and maybe something happens. Likely it will. And I go back to it takes attitude to do that. It takes a mentality to seize the opportunity in the moment. And then when it happens, you go for it and you snatch it and you go to the next thing. And people realize how valuable you are, because not everybody does that, but everybody could. It's a simple thought. It's just, people don't realize how important that is.
So when do you think you realized it?
Oh,
Or did
gosh.
you just,
I don't know.
I mean, you wrote the forward of 5-star QB and it talked about coaching at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And then you've had this illustrious career where, you've gotten fired, you've gotten hired, like you've seen a little bit of everything. I wonder if there was a term you're like, okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more control, or was it just an evolution?
Well, no, there's a lot of moments in there, that add up and that contribute to the mentality. I mean, this didn't just pop and like, okay, always compete.
Yeah.
It didn't happen like that. It took a long time to put things together and to make sense of it through tons of teaching and inspiration and observation and failures, for sure. The suffering was all part of it, and the growth and all of that. The best things happened when I was in my worst situation, in New England. And so it's a process of putting things together. But the point of it is, as a coach, I'm compelled. I've got to put my stuff together so that I can share it with the guys around me, so they can act in accordance. If I can't explain what I'm thinking, or I have this thought of how things should be, and I can't share that with the people around me, then it's not worth a darn. So it's coming back to realizing I've got to make things in a certain order that people can act upon it, and they can act in accordance. And now they can be an extension of the message, and we can be more fully connected and coordinated. That's why language is so important, and no synonyms, and and say things the same, and repetition and consistency, and all those things are so important. That's so that you can teach well, so that they can learn well, and that's all where it comes from.
Do you still think that the best teachings come from your biggest failures?
Well, I kind of think that's life. Yeah, we suffer through, and I hate to learn the hard way. I've always said that I let the other guy learn the hard way. But the great lessons do come out of how you respond and what you do about it. And that's why, to me, it's become something that I'm really attracted to in observing people in the situation where, whether they did real well or they didn't do well, how do they respond? Because that's telling me who they are, and they're showing what's coming out of their experience, and that's really valuable in figuring things out.
One of the coolest things I get to do as a broadcaster is you have production meetings, right? You remember those? I've done millions of them, and I've always asked the same question. This is 18 years, I think, calling games. And head coach, coordinator, player is, what's the philosophy? Or a version of like what matters most around here. And if they're not on the same page among all three groups,
There you go.
you can kind of predict the game. So you had that moment, you referenced the Patriots, where, okay, you get let go, you have this year off, it's page one of Win Forever, slam the book shut, stunned, and you talk about John Wooden, and you had this philosophy kind of emerge.
Right.
And then you've lived it at these two stops. Like, have you been able to look back on the last, has it been 20 years?
You know, precisely in this period since leaving the Seahawks, I yanked the book out again. Glenn had told me, you had at least take a look at what it looks like, and I read through the whole thing, and I was blown away. I was blown away how strict I stayed to it. I haven't changed the thoughts because they were the right thoughts. We came upon the right stuff to express that was the important stuff, that was meaningful, that had a place, and I could work up. And I'm way better at it than I was, and I've learned a ton along the way. But I mean, it's to the letter. Tom Cable said one time, he said, the thing that drives me crazy, you're so uncommonly consistent. And I thought, wow, that's cool. That's a great thing to be, but it was kind of pissing him off because I wouldn't waver, but it showed up. And so, yeah, looking back, I used to say, people would ask, how are you doing? You doing great, or are you not? What do you think? And so I'll tell you when we look back someday, we get out there and I can evaluate from, once we've finished, and then I'll give you an idea what I think of it. And now I'm really proud. I'm really proud. And I'm proud that the messaging and the mentality was consistent and successful, and it was such that I could share it with people, and other people could go ahead and make their own versions of it and learn from it, and not do it, but just do it in accordance to how they see things. And so, I have looked back at it, and just recently in the last couple months, so it's been enlightening. I had no idea that I stuck to it that much.
Ready, set, dream cabin nestled in the woods. Just 4 hours to go. New job halfway across the country. Butterflies before a first date. Wherever you go, 76 fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
The clarity that comes from stepping away, this brain I have now that I'm operating with, it ain't the same as it was. It's different, because I've been able to move the burden of, the burden of the competing and all of the day-to-day and all of the things that were going on to the side. The lessons from early on are stronger than ever. My desire to get back into where it comes from is more important to me than ever. And the work that I'm doing going forward in the months ahead is going right back to and revisiting and hopefully rekindling tons of stuff that comes from a really special place. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of Eastern influence in the stuff that there was the early people that I was influenced by, and they were the ones that got me going, and they had gone through a similar experience. They put it into their work. I didn't try to do it. It just became me, and teaching inner game stuff and stuff from Michael Murphy, stuff from Galway is hugely in part of my game about self-talk and letting happen and how we see the game and how we let it flow, and all of those things have always been there, but they mean more to me now than ever, and it's been really, really fun. It's been really exciting.
I think anybody who observes a coach, whether they're a fan or they're someone in the business, whatever, you just imagine it's a maniacal job. Like, there's so much going on. Somebody once described you in Seattle as the true point guard, just bouncing around the facility, like just passing the ball, hitting every room.
I kind of think of myself as a shooter, but okay.
But to that point, can you describe what is the responsibility of that job? And I'm curious what it's like to slow down or not have that cadence that
Well,
you're consistent.
that's what I was talking about. It's entirely a different mentality, that I'm living in, waking up to every morning and on fire in the morning, with the thoughts and what's coming up. It's just different. I dream about football. I don't act on it during the day, and that's kind of very consistent. But really, it's just about trying to make sense of things and make it more clear and understand with more depth and appreciate all of the people and the exchanges and the opportunities and the challenges and all of that from a different perspective, than in the midst of it, and it's been really, it's been really important.
I don't remember the year. It might have been 2014 or 15. We were up there a lot. We were following you guys. And you were competing, as you would say, like to find like the space between the notes.
So the note would be like a meeting, and then the next meeting would be at the hotel 5 hours later. So you go compete in LA, we'd run to the beach for 5 hours, right? In Seattle, you'd get on your jet ski or whatever it was for 5 hours. What was that like, and is it different now? Are you still competing to find that space, or is it more of a...
No, it's different. No, that is different. And it was really, the thought was the spaces between the spaces and trying to maximize those, and because they were limited, and it took focus to take advantage of the moments that are, it might be 15 minutes, it might be in between calls, or it might be, like I said, in between meetings. Certainly the quiet time after practice, and I love to be by myself during those times. But it's discipline. It's the discipline to maximize that little moment that you have, and that takes really good focus, and you got to be able to shut the world off. And so it's a little bit of a meditation in itself in a unique way, but it's been a really important aspect when you're so busy. It's different now. Now those spaces expand, and the opportunities to really draw in what's going on, what could happen, and what to expect, and what to anticipate, and what you want to create, and where you want to go with it, and what are the possibilities. That kind of thinking is what feels so expansive, and just enjoying the heck out of it. It's been very unique.
I think, been a global guy. Like, you've traveled the world, you can communicate with anybody from any background or backdrop. But this sounds different. Like, it sounds like you're seeing the world like from a different lens than maybe ever before. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like, I think every football coach is dialed. Some coaches were like you, and they could see the world, and they recognize other things that are happening around you. It feels like you're seeing like the whole planet in a different way from just listening to you. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. It's still competing, Yeah. It's the same mentality about it. It doesn't. That has stayed true. That you're either competing or you're not. And that means that you're seeing the moments come, and you do everything you can. You immerse yourself into it as much as possible, and draw as much from it, and give as much to it. Really, it's the giving part of it that's become even more true to my heart. I want to give in every way that I can, and so that's what this time is for. I think it's to get thoughts collected, ideas, and creative opportunities connected, so that we can really do some amazing things. So that's all of that is kind of driving what I'm doing day to day now.
It's interesting. I'm part of the Pac-12, had been since I came out here and started working for you. And when it started to fall apart, I had to figure out, like, how am I going to compete through this? And I came up with this phrase that I have on my little wristband here, which is be light. And I was like, I need to be light, because things are going to change. It's going to change in my life. How am I going to navigate that? I'm an intense guy by nature as it is. Had to be light. But two, I stole this from David Brooks of like being an illuminator. Like, how many people can you shine a light on? And then thirdly, when you get your shot, you're going to light it the blank up. Like, you can go light it up. You can get your shot. And I wonder how you feel about that idea of like being light amid a transition in life.
Yeah. I interpret the light explanation of it is being open, and being receptive, and not being stuck, open-hearted, warm-hearted, available for whatever's coming. That's, to me, that's competing. You're ready, bring it, and then that's just part of it, though. That just gets you to the moment. What the real competing is that you can relax in the moment and really get it all. Don't just brush through something. And people would think that I'm jumping in and out, I'm not paying attention, I'm all scattered and all that. That is me. But in those moments in between, if I can capture and I can see it, and I can feel it, and I can sense somebody, I can feel the emotional connection that just took place, then I'm going to try to go for it and get right in it and make sure that I'm there and available for all of it. That's what light means to me, as opposed to being burdened and drawn down and anxious and worried and concerned. You're not going to go very far over there. You're going to get stuck, and so it bring you back out of that.
So let's talk about competing for a second, because the second conversation that I recall most among the ones that we've had in our lifetime together is just had my 5th wedding anniversary. And you were in Seattle for a while, and I just needed some time. So I called you, I was like, I got to fly up. I need a little time, I'm about to go get married. And I'm walking in your office, I don't know if you remember this, and I was just expecting like a good hang. And you sat me down, and I got like blistered on how to compete in marriage. And I've been kicking ass. I'm crushing it as a husband and as a dad, just so you know. But it's also a beautiful word. it's not a heavy word to me, competing. I think when people hear you say like competing, like there can be an interpretation
Yeah,
of
I
like,
appreciate you
gotta
bringing
go
that
kick
up.
ass. Like, so take us through like that is a word that has.
Yeah, I realize that it's a word that takes people to what their upbringing, their experiences have been, and that's why I try to get quick. I quickly try to get to talking about the definition of it. It's striving for excellence. Competing isn't winning, losing, stomping on somebody's neck and rubbing their face in the dirt. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about striving, that you're in pursuit of excellence in everything that you can think of. That doesn't mean that you're trying to beat somebody. It means you're trying to be everything you can be to be great at whatever you're doing. And certainly in your marriage and in your family, you can strive to figure it out how to just be there for them and give to them at all times and always be on. And the greatest joy comes back in that giving. And so if you can stay connected and stay out of your own little miserable little world of stuff that's going wrong and stay connected to working with the moments of in the exchanges and the duties and the responsibilities and the habits and the stuff that can get to be like maybe numbing or drumming you down into, I think it's the other way around. You find how to make that work for you because you're giving to this wonderful person that you've chosen to spend your life with, as well as your kids. What's really cool to me now is being a grandpa. I mean, being a grandpa is like, it's so much better than being a dad because the relationship just changes. And so I can't get enough of my grandkids. I mean, I just can't get enough of them. I'll do anything they can. I'm up at 5:40 this morning and we're playing a Star Wars Monopoly, on the kitchen floor, and that's with my little guys, and that was, I couldn't wait for them to wake me up, and sure enough they did. Hey, Grandpa, you want to get up? I'd made them promise me the night before, Anyway, so, that's is really important stuff. So the part that has worked out so well in my mind is that I can see it fit everywhere. I see striving for doing something really cool in everything. And that's why I love the phrases and the phrase, you're either competing or you're not. There's no in between. If you're not competing, then you ain't striving. And so now what are you doing? You're just sitting there, you're just drifting off, you're letting it go, you're letting something, get by. And in the phrase, in relentless pursuit of finding the competitive edge in everything you're doing, that's a real phrase. It's an overwhelming phrase to somebody that, I've got to compete. Well, they miss it. You strive to do something great. That's a burden. That's burdensome, to find out how to communicate, relate better with your son or your daughter or your wife or whatever. Yeah, that's the real deal. That's real living. And it also, the strive, if you decide to strive, I feel like you're giving yourself to whatever the opportunity is. And that's again where you're opened for the greatest gifts to return, and so there's a little selfish in that one. I'd like to be great at being a dad and great at being a husband, and great at being a coach and great, being a friend, and so that's where all that comes from. And I know it sounds obsessive or whatever. I don't care, I care less. But I want to share it so people have a choice to understand that there is a way how to go about it and be in command of your own world. That's really what, to me, that's leads you to.
Every time I talk to a locker room of football players, I ask, how many consider yourself a storyteller? Maybe 5 raise their hand. I say, how many have social media? The whole room does. I say, you're living a story every day. You've often said, you're living your philosophy every day, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
To your point about coaches, because I think you're known, Pete Carroll, competing. Anybody in sport would say that. They'd also, second sentence, probably he's going to coach you on having to have a philosophy. When coaches are wondering, how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do you help them have depth? Because when I've asked this in production meetings, I get all great words, right? I just get a variance of words, and I sit back, didn't really own that answer. I don't feel it in the depths.
Ask me again a couple days later, see what they say.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you, how do you coach somebody up on how to get there?
It's a process. It's a process of self-discovery that you're going through it. It's happening. You might want to gain control of what's going on, and be aware of it, because like we say, you've already made all the choices that guide your life. How you get up in the morning, what you do, how you act, what you wear, the music you listen to, the books you read, whatever. Those are all choices that you're making, but they become something magnanimous in your life when you realize, yes, these are the choices that I've been making. And this tells me a story of who I am and what I'm all about. So that there's a process in there that there's no easy way to do it. You either do it or you don't, and you have to work at it. You have to take yourself through it, and it's painstaking to hang with it till you get to the words that really represent what your thoughts and your feelings are. To just write something down that you heard, that don't mean nothing. That's a start, but then look at the words. Do the words really stand for what you believe in? Always compete, man. I can't get any more simple. That's as simple as it gets. And respect means regard. And those decisions that you've made about the thoughts and the feelings that you have. And my favorite one is talking about uncompromising principles. What are the principles that that's you. You're not bending. You're going to fight your ass off to prove that this is what you feel. That until you realize what those are, and there might not be very many of them in your life. You might not even know. And it might take you a long time to get there. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth going for. It's not worth pursuing. Because to get there and to understand the depth allows you to act in accordance with the person you know yourself to be. And it's crucial. And if you take pride in being you, then you've got to be authentic. And to be authentic, you got to be consistent. And so to be consistent, you got to know what the heck you're repeating. Their teams can go win a championship and do something, and if they don't really know how they got there, they ain't going to do it again. They'll may luck into it some years later. It's being able to come back and utilize the principles that you believed in that took you to the place that you achieved, that allows you to come back. And make them win once,
A couple years ago, I made up a project, called it the Napkin Project. So if I gave you a napkin right now, on one end, you'd write how you believe you impact the world, flip it over, give it to somebody on your staff, and they'd have to write how they believe you impact them. And you open it up. Cool. You find out, do they mirror each other? Yeah. And I did the exercise first with this production company I'm always working with out of Portland called Blue Ox, and it was the complete opposite. How I was impacting them and how I thought I was impacting the world. And it was amazing to be like, oh my God, how wrong can you be, dude? Like, these guys know you intimately. Yeah. And I wonder if coaches did that in their staffs, in your experience, what do you think would happen? Like, do you think there's a world where the head coach has to open up this, call it the jar of vulnerability, to be willing to go for it? Because how many guys have said to you when you hired them, I've never been asked that question before. I've never been asked what my philosophy is. Never been asked to go there. Right.
Most everybody's that way. Yeah, most everybody.
Why is that? What's that?
I don't know. You remember, I was asked to speak at a convention in Washington D.C. It was all on all forces. I mean, Army, Navy, Air Force. They're all there, And it was the leaders, and they were talking about setting a new kind of course that they wanted to get connected, whatever it was. And we had these subgroups, and in my subgroup we were yapping, and we were had to make a presentation, and they asked me to lead it, so my little subgroup. So one of the first things I asked is do you have a philosophy? If you have a philosophy, raise your hand. And always it's about 20% of the crowd may raise their hand kind of wimpily. And I said, okay, and keep your hands in the air. If you can explain to us right now in 25 words or less what your philosophy is, keep your hand up. And all the hands go down, And the table right in front of me is these circle of generals. There's like 6 of them sitting at this right there. And one of the guys who's one of the lead dogs, he had his hand up, and he pulled his hand out. I said, oh, I got you, And I thought, oh, geez, because they all started squirming in the seat because I'm talking to the general. He couldn't explain it. Okay, so think about that. Think about how far he's gotten, how many people he's impacted, how many decisions he's made, the choices, life and death and whatever. And he can't answer it. Well, that doesn't mean he's not good at what he does, because he's got a philosophy. He doesn't know how to explain it. He doesn't know how to express it. And so that means to me that how could he possibly count on the people around him to be connected as well as they need to be to function at such a high level? That's what it's all about, And so anyway, it's a great exercise, and I know that when I challenge people, I know they don't do it, because they ain't tough enough. It's hard. It's hard to go down and dig in and make yourself. They'll give up, But it's not that it's not a good idea to press you on it, and it's self-awareness. It's an understanding of who you are. I mean, we're going to ask the quarterbacks basically the same kind of stuff during the couple days they're here, because we need to help them understand who they are. They have figured out if they're going to be great. And if they don't figure it out, they'll be good sometimes.
So what does it take to be a great quarterback?
No.
These guys now, I mean, you see it. Brennan's coaching at UW, Nate's in Carolina. You were with a bunch of QBs, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot more coming at him than was coming at Carson and Matt and JD and Mark back in the day. At least in their phone, in their pocket.
Yeah. There's a lot more outside. Yeah, the game is still the same, and to me, but it's been affected because of that effect that's coming from the outside. To play quarterback, it takes everything anybody's ever thought of in the history of sports. I mean, every game, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, everything, tennis, basketball, they all come into play when you're a quarterback, because the intuition that quarterbacks have to grow to understand how they'll respond in the situations that they respond to in a split second, based on the score in the game, the time in the game, what the call just was. My guy's limping over here. My right tackle is getting whipped by the guy with this Russian. I mean, the millions and millions of variables that go into play in this makes it just an extraordinary challenge. And the fact that we're here at Elite 11, and Andy Bark has set his whole life kind of in order to help young guys figure this thing out. And I don't know how frustrated Andy is, but he must be, because most of them don't figure it out. It's so freaking hard and so complex. They figure it out to degrees, so, what's it take to be a good quarterback? Is that kind of what you asked? Yeah. Well, there's some skills, obviously, that you got to have, but it's so much more than that. And what I'm looking for how guys respond. I'm looking for how they react. How do they handle what just took place? Whether it's good or whether it's bad. Whether they just threw a great pass, how do they respond? What happens next? That's what I want to know. And here's the reason why. You need to know who your quarterback is as a coach, and to be successful. You need to know what to expect from him, and you need to know what positions to put him in so that he can operate at his best. So you need to know that guy inside and out every which way. And then we need to help him understand who he is in every which way, so that he can do the things he's capable of doing in the moment of truth. There's millions of moments at this position that call for you to find your best, and that is such a challenge, And if you don't have a really good sense, then you probably won't respond the way we can count on, because we won't know. So we want to know, how do you respond when you do well? How do you respond when you do poorly? How are you practicing? How do you represent? How do you present yourself? And who is that person is way more important than they can throw the ball 55 yards on a line or whatever. That's important. We can always adapt the game. Somebody's got to go out there and run this freaking thing, and it's harder than hell. And we got to get a guy in a situation where he can be at his best, where we can count on him if you want to win.
It's so interesting. And you helped on the book 5-Star QB, and the numbers are staggering in terms of how many guys transfer, how many guys don't make it, and they're all told, every kid here at Elite 11, there's 20 quarterbacks, they're all told they're going to be first-round picks, and now they're paid more than fifth-round picks. Like, it's just what reality is. So I think it's hard for them to navigate at the young age that they are, external reality, internal reality once they get in the facility, and then there's all these other added pressures of, well, this is the guy that maybe we spend X amount of dollars on. This is the expectation we have on him. So I think that it's like a whole support system around that position that has changed. Is it like the NFL?
Well, come back to that. The key in performance is being there in the moment, being available to function clearly and fully like you're capable in the moment. To do that, as Galloway taught us a long time ago, if you can command a quieted mind, a mind that is chilled and quiet and not discursively affected and distracted, that's the challenge. Okay, so when Carson Palmer was playing, and he's the Heisman Trophy winner, first guy picked in the draft, there was a lot going on around him. All the hype, all the buildup, we talk about it forever. But now there's a whole nother element to this thing, and it's just another element. And you still have to get to the same spot Carson had to get to if you want to be great. And you have to get there more than the other guys, more consistently. You have to find it more consistently where we can count on it, so that we can set you up so that you can have success. And so that challenge has been just geometrically exploded, whatever. It couldn't be more of a factor. Parents are more involved in it, agents, lawyers, money people, business types. They're all part of the factor. And how can we protect this kid's brain so that he can play quieted like he needs to, so that he can play like he's capable? That's the challenge. And it just pisses me off. I'm so freaking pissed that somebody put this on these kids. It's enough to be a young kid playing the game and going to high school and growing up. There's enough right there. But to put all this other stuff in their brain, so it's more important than ever that they can find how to command that, that interaction that goes on, the distraction, so that you can let yourself play like you're capable. It's the same challenge as always. It's just much more impacting.
College football season ended, and I called a dear friend, and he was a head coach in college football, and I said, God, what a fun season. Does it feel like it just became like real cloudy though? Because the day the games are over, it became all the other stuff, which is new. It's new to college football.
Yes.
There isn't a cadence like there is in the NFL with free agency, the draft, whatever. It's just kind of muddy 24/7, crazy town.
It's the wild, wild west. It's rolling.
But the games, like you go to the Coliseum, it feels just like it did back in the day.
Sure.
Like, it's nothing can touch the games. But I ask you, like, as a fan of college football, right? Your oldest son is the coordinator at Washington. He interviewed for multiple head jobs. Like, he's in the game of college football. What's your lens on the sport that you had dramatic success at that level?
The calling for the discipline that it takes to spatially put things where they can stay out of the main thing that's the main thing, which is the game. And it's the same thing for the quarterbacks, the same thing for the coaches. The rhythm, as you're talking about in the off season, it's an ongoing. I'm always recruiting. I've got to recruit this guy to the next portal. I got to keep him in the program. And I'm already hearing different language. I'm already hearing different approach. I'm already hearing different styles of off-season programs, even in the NFL. The kids are coming in different. They've been affected by COVID and all the stuff that's happened, and now the NIL stuff. It's affected their way of thinking. It's happening in the business world too. People can see that people don't want to come to work. Why do I have to come in on Friday or Thursday? I can do all my work at home. Well, that mentality is misleading, misguiding of what people's intentions are, but it's real and it's legit. So it's an adaptation that's taking place right now, and it's overwhelming all but. And because the game's the game, we have to get them back to the game. So whatever that other stuff is, it needs to be somewhere else so that we can find the time to be in the game like you need to be. And it's a great challenge. It's a great challenge. I think you can see signs of it too. I think you can see signs of it even in the play, but we won't talk about that.
A couple more for you. We've always had this same phone call. Every time somebody tries to capture the era when you were at SC, the phone call goes something like, didn't really get it right. Because it was about Hollywood or about like an agenda of leaning into Los Angeles versus creating a culture from within. And that's how I saw it from living it for 4 years. You were there for 9. When you look back on your time at SC, like how do you describe the magic that was created at a time that didn't have a pro sports team? There was no social media. Football media rights were nowhere near what they are now. We were the show. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a golden opportunity, and they had been lousy. They hadn't done well, and the expectations were low, and I got blasted going in. They thought, who's this clown? And they were right. I'd been fired a couple times. I didn't discount what their opinions were. I just needed to kick ass and not let that be true. But we had a rare opportunity. Twitter was just starting, and Ben Malcolmson was there available to teach me and help me. We played with it. We had fun. We had so much fun doing what we were doing, and we worked like crazy, and we recruited like crazy, and we had our expectations as high as we could imagine them, and we're willing to live with that. And it was just a golden age for it was my favorite time in ball. And there's nothing I could have done in the NFL that would have topped that. And I knew that. And I just the fact that I was leaving, I was just going to cherish that time, because, and unfortunately, people looked at us and they thought, there's no way you can have that much fun. There's no way that you could be doing it like that. You must be doing something wrong. And hence, we get in trouble after it's all said and done years later, So, but it was It was just, and the coaches were so good, and I lost so many good coaches. It was hard to keep the level of intensity that we had developed in the time that we were there. You bring somebody into that, and they tried to fit in and plug in, but it was hard. It was a lot to ask. Eddie O and Sark and Lane, those guys were amazing ball coaches, and they've proven it. They're awesome, and to lose those guys and not replace them. They were irreplaceable in a sense because they had grown up with us, and they were part of it. So anyway, it was just a very, very special time, and it'll always hold in that place for me.
Yeah. There's one thing that really bothers me about that time is that people sometimes light you up for leaving. And I'm always defensive of it. And I said, no, look, you got to trust me. If I know him as well as anybody that you know, if he had any idea what was coming, there's no chance he's leaving. There's no chance. It changed his life. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, it bothers me every time somebody says that.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do about it because it looks like that. It looks like we bailed, That's not what happened. And we were out, and then it had been years. From the time they started the process, it was 3-4 years or whatever it was. We had forgotten about it. We weren't even worried about it anymore. It was gone. And then when we leave, there was, it got whatever. They came to some kind of conclusion or whatever that happened, and brought it all back up again. But there's nothing you can do about it. And I don't fight it because people don't want to. They don't want to hear it, But it's okay. We had a great time and we did great stuff, and we've affected a lot of people in really, really special ways. And we taught a lot too. We did a lot of teaching during that time, and which I'm really proud of. Think of all of our guys that went out and did stuff and took their version of what we were trying to do and faltered just like we all do. And then it's so hard to be a good head coach when you're young. It's so hard. It's just. There's just so much to it. There's so many decisions to be made and premises to hold and philosophies to expound upon, and it just takes a while, And so our guys falter a little bit, but they're back. They're back. Eddie won his national, natty, and these guys are both going to get one before it's said and done. I'm talking about Sark and Lane.
Oh, they're rolling.
Yeah,
no doubt. It'll be fun to see them in the same league.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it before. Reg, he gets his Heisman back. I always thought it was interesting at the Heisman for you. You never really went to the night when they got it. My interpretation is that was you were like, give Carson and Matt and Reggie their day in the sun. Then you would always fly out the next day to go to the dinner or whatever. Was that on purpose?
Yeah, that wasn't my deal. That was their deal. I didn't want to get in there and rein in on it. The work had been done, and the statements had been made of who they are, and now if they're going to get recognized, great, great. And what do you take it, you put it on a shelf, And somebody tried to take it away from Reggie. They never got it away from Reggie. He was the Heisman Trophy winner, and there was, it just was, because of some declaration they make, they put the trophy somewhere else. But he was the dude, and he was everything that you needed to be to earn that and own it, and all that. So I probably just put it in a little different light than most people do.
When you think of your career coaching, like, what are some of the things that pop? So many games. Yeah,
well, mostly the fun, because I was always saying that if we're not having fun, I'm screwing up, and the fun came from the challenges in the games for sure, and the big wins and the big come from behinds and the great finishes and the rises at the end of the season and the way we used to finish our season so well. All of that takes such great pride, and it was so fun to see it happen because that was. By design, we were trying to finish great, and when we were able to do it year in and year out, and that was really rewarding, and it felt great to see that continue to happen. But the best part is playing catch, man. The best part of it, throwing the ball every day, and as simple as that may seem, it just takes me right back to being a kid, and loving the chance to play in a game and to make the call, make the catch, make the throw, whatever it was, hit the home run, whatever it was. That was what life was to me, and it still is. I'm still trying to hit jumpers from the top of the keys, moving in a little bit. I'm still trying to hit that winner before I go in the house. And that's just always been. It's always been the fun. Really, I go back to that and find that there's never enough wins. There's never enough wins. And there wasn't, and there never will be. Coming back, if I was coming back to coach again, there's never going to be enough. There was a time, and it got wrecked at SC. When we won 3 years in a row. We won every game for years. That's the real deal, man. That's living, man. That's living.
It changed coaching. Like every coach started talking about competing in practice. Like that's where it really became a microphone.
We had a chance to to make a statement in there because we did stuff long enough that people recognized.
Any regrets in your career when you think about it?
Yeah, sure, not winning. There's games, it's just the games that got away. The Texas game, huge. The Patriots game, huge. Those moments that they were right there to be. You didn't have to do anything. You just the next snap, next step you take, just take that step, and then it goes the other way, And
are you one of those? Like, have you ever watched those back? Either one of those two?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I haven't watched.
I've seen the glimpse of the highlights. I've never watched those games again.
It's just too painful.
I just don't want to. I don't need to go there.
Yeah,
I lived it.
Yeah.
Been there, done that one.
You told me something. It was really cool. We were in Hawaii. I'm probably 23, and I went to dinner with you and your wife Glenna, probably Brennan and Amber, and I said, "What's it like being like a dad in this profession?" And you again. And this could just be my interpretation, but it felt like you grabbed me and stared me deep into my soul, and you said, "Well, Yogi, it's not about making it the whole game, but it's competing to get to the 6th inning of a 7-inning game, and always just making an effort. And it's okay that you have dreams and passion, you need to go for them, but compete to always show up for your family, even though it may not look like the family down the block." And I say that having known you for a while, and I'm curious, when you look back on. You're grandpa now. You've got grown kids. You've got this family. You've got this amazing community. What do you think about how you've competed as a parent throughout your coaching career?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I would have done better if I had a chance to do it over again early on. I just would have been better at it. Like I've told Glenna within 5 or 6 years or something. I said, you make all the decisions now. I made all those ones. I screwed up a bunch of them here and there or whatever. Now I'm on you. You deserve to get us right here as we finish this thing up. I want to kick ass at the end, so I'm going with my strength. I'm listening to whatever you want to do, and I've loved that. We made a bunch of choices to move. We moved all over the place. 1 year here, 1 year there, 9 months. This job, that job, just chasing fun and chasing the opportunity and all of that. But they were hard on them. Hard on the kids, hard on her, just disruptive because I wanted to go coach somebody else's defensive backs, come on. And so she was great because she's a competitor too and she's awesome. But I wouldn't do it that way. Those decisions would be different. I don't know what the result would have been, but I would have done those things more in tune with everybody's needs rather than what Pete wanted to do.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was interviewing Chris Peterson, who I know you know well and respect. I asked him probably one of the worst questions I could have asked him. I said, "So you gonna go coach again?" And he goes, "I'm coaching every day, man." Yeah. And I was like, "Touche."
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I totally agree with Chris. That's what it feels like, and that's all I know how to do, and I'm gonna keep doing it. And I really feel, and I've come to and understand everybody needs to be coached up. If you want to be great. It isn't like you did it here, okay, now you're great. You got to keep getting coached up because I realized how much I've learned in the years that have added on, and there's another year. There's always stuff to get better at if you stay curious. If you care and it's important to you, then there's always stuff. So, matter of fact, like if we do some teaching, I might be involved with some education stuff. Then what I really would like to do is figure out the format so that once somebody leaves your class, they stay connected to you so that they can keep learning. You can stay with them. It's like, do we stay with the NFL players? No, not good enough. Do we stay with servicemen? No, not good enough. Can we do a better job when people retire? No. Yes, we could. We don't do a good enough job of that. And knowing how much there is still available to draw and to grow from, I'm more compelled to figure that out. I hope AI helps us. I'm sure it's gonna. We need to figure out ways to help people continue to stay connected with the growth that they're on. Don't just leave them on their own. Be there for them.
It's interesting. I think, and I'd say the same with Elite 11, right? It's just, I talk to guys when their careers are over.
Yeah.
Not really when they're in them, unless I'm calling their games.
Yeah.
It's just kind of unfortunately how it's gone, and we could easily compete to do better there. Okay.
There is a good connection for quarterbacks. I think it's this intimacy that's created. That Andy figured out a long time ago has guys stay with it. And their pride is still connected to it, and that's a cool thing. And maybe they could be engaged more in all of that. And I know we bring guys back, right? And guys come back to it and all that. That's really the right kind of enrichment, so that people can continue to expand as they go on.
That was the cool part about writing the book, 5-Star QB. I just called up guys from 20 years.
Yeah.
And
sure.
every QB,
you know.
I'm in. How can I throw down for the cause?
Right.
So I think it's interesting, just last one here, from being in this chair, I can find myself instantly going back to like graduate assistant in his 20s, right? I wonder, like, if you were with Lou Holtz, would you go back to graduate assistant Pete Carroll? And I say that of like, I have all these like memories of
course I would.
Yeah, okay. So it's an interesting dynamic, right, of in real time talking about it. But I think back to, I loved coaching a ton. I loved life. One would argue even more. And you told me, you're like, don't coach. So I wonder now, like, here I am 20 years later, like, when you reflect back on that, because at that age for me, it was a huge statement from somebody like you. And then my career obviously went in coaching adjacent as a broadcaster, storyteller, et cetera, and haven't left Southern California.
I didn't want you to be restricted. I mean, it was a selfish thought that I could tell you something like that, but we were close enough to, to share the real stuff. And just, you have so much more to offer from your ability to find perspective and insights and your willingness to dig in and all of that. You're different than other coaches. I thought you had more unique stuff to offer. And that's why I said that, And you're doing it, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
What are you doing interviewing me,
Therapy
man?
session. Yeah, I know. Man, it was cool. I mean, I thought about it this morning. I haven't interviewed you probably since USCRipsit.com.
Really?
Right? Why would I? I just call you.
Yeah.
And I've had a podcast for a decade and never had you on it. I'm like, well.
Yeah, it's been a blast, Joe. To follow all of the stuff that you've done, 'cause you, unlike almost anybody else I've been around, you stayed connected to the stuff, and you found out, how you would interpret it and how others could see it, and you've tried to share and give them insights and all of that stuff, and you've taken a path that nobody else could have taken but you. And I was always hoping that you would.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I mean, your impact on me was so profound. I wish every 20-year-old got to have their first real job out of college under somebody. I wish my teammates got to play for you. I've told pretty much all of them that. But your impact on me as a dad, like, I compete to make sure there's no pollution in our house.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like I'm telling you, man. Like, and it's really a cool thought. We compete to like live with integrity, whatever it may be. It comes from that foundational idea of like style, vision, theme, philosophy. What is it? And don't be BS about it. So thank you. As an old man, as a 42-year-old.
Thanks for giving me the shot.
It's the Afterglow, Jim Thornby, Yogi Roth. That was Pete Carroll, presented by our founding partner, 76. Jim, questions you wish we asked, big takeaways you had from one of the most iconic coaches in our lifetime.
Again, like I kind of said beforehand, it's just, it was not a conventional interview by any stretch of the imagination. It was just getting, I literally was a fly on the wall for that interview, but everyone else now gets to be a fly on the wall of just of the two of you having that conversation, and the two of you, like, going through your relationship and the advice he's given you over the years, and how you've taken that and you almost kind of like turn that back on him, like how does advice, using that towards him now. So, which was fun, but yeah, it was just really cool. I mean, it's not something, when all said and done, he's one of the great football coaches in the history of college football. Now, I know he's not eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame because he's one season short of doing that. But you can't tell me that his impact on the game is not worthy of that. Same like with Mike Leach, who's like one win short of, if he would have won one more game, he would have been eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. Sometimes, I get it. You have to have certain standards so that everything, but like, as far as guys that have impacted the college game the last 25 years, it's hard to find two more, Nick Saban's in that conversation, but those two guys are iconic. And then for that to be your personal mentor, someone that you've had that deep relationship with, not just on the field, off the field, families, all together. Like it's pretty special.
Yeah, I'll say this: Mike Leach, Pete Carroll have changed the game. I would imagine if either one were inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, they would feel tremendous pride in that. But I'd also imagine that neither one of them is going to spend a lot of time during the day worrying about that, whether it's, here with Pete Carroll or wherever Mike Leach is orbiting the universe right now. But why should they be in it? They should be in it because all of the young coaches that aspire to be great, that aspire to win, that aspire to thrive, that aspire to impact, look to those two. I mean, go around high school football. What offense you running? I'll run a version of the air raid. Learn from Mike Leach. Read about it in his book. Learned it from Hal Mummy. Like, they go there. Hey, what are your practices like? Or always based on competition. Learn that from Pete Carroll. Like, I hear that all of the time. Coming off the road trip in the Midwest, the amount of times coaches said, I read the book you wrote with Pete is too many for me to count. Assistant coaches, graduate assistant coaches, analysts, head coaches. It's in their offices. Like, he changed the game. So how? Let's talk a couple examples. If you track college football, when we had it rolling at SC, who had it rolling next? And what did they say? Look at Urban Meyer. Practice is all about competition. Look at Nick Saban. It's all about competition. Nobody was doing ones versus ones. It was always one offense, two defense, one offense. When we were at SC, it was the best against the best. And I'm coming off of seeing Oregon and Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. They practiced like that. They practice a version of that. And I think the one thing that, why I think he needs to continue to maybe either do content or to continue to share his insights is that I think coaches need to take something from him in terms of every moment his teams went for it. And for Pete, every moment, like he said in our interview, he's going for it. Like, how classic is it when we asked him about retirement or we asked him about his life right now and he's like, I'm really competing to be okay with where I am in the moment. The only one like that is him.
He was competing to play Star Wars Monopoly with his grandchildren at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Like, I just think there's so many beautiful traits, which is why I would urge the committee, like every committee, we adjust and move, right? I still think Pitt's in the Big East. They play in the ACC. Conference realignment has been crazy. I think we can make a couple adjustments in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, why not? I mean, sometimes logic needs to take over. Yeah. And I know I'm asking for a lot for logic in college football after what we've seen the last couple of years, which we have seen very directly. But yeah, I think this would something that makes sense. Unfortunately, Coach Leach would not be around to see whenever that change was made, but hopefully we can, make that change before that's time for Coach Carroll.
Amen. Okay, so before we kick out of here, I want to thank the SC fans who listened and watched, and or the people who were critics of Pete Carroll to spend the time and watch, and of course those who celebrated him, because you feel how much he loved that institution and how USC impacted him and how he's always carried what that place did for him so deeply within his heart. And we talked about it. We went there on how I would get frustrated and pissed when he'd get overly criticized and how he has navigated that at times. I think, too, is that I hope that everybody takes something away from the leadership traits and apply it to your life, right? Whether you're a parent, whether you're a startup company like you and I, whether you're a coach at any level, or you're just trying to be the best version of yourself every day. I think there's some beautiful elements to take away from this. And then I think there's few conversations in my lifetime that I go back and listen to again, right? One is I'll listen to Kobe and Jay Shetty. I love going back to that once a year. This, I think, is going to be one that we'll want to revisit. So bookmark it, share it with a friend. I think it'll impact a lot of people. And then finally, here we are in game week. One of the core elements I learned from being on Pete Carroll's staff was contingency planning. I cannot wait to get to Eugene, Oregon in year 3 for Dan Lanning, where we know that he's an aggressive coach. And we also know, as he says, you got to take your medicine. He's taken it too as a head coach. He's learned a lot. I think his growth has been tremendous. I think he's about to take up all of the space that Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban has left. in college football. I think Oregon's about to be that type of team, that type of program. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, here we are in week 1. With that said, later this week, you're going to hear from the guy I'm going to be standing next to in week 1, in Guy Haberman. Let's go. Can't wait to be around him and Rhett Lewis and company. So to everybody listening, thank you. You're going to start seeing some new stuff from us here at Y Option, of course, at yoption.com. You'll also start to see some stuff behind the paywall a little bit. We went free. Everybody got everything for the first 6-8 weeks of this bad boy. And now we're going to start tiering some of that content. And that's part of building a business. That's part of the joy that we have bringing you college football through the lens of the West Coast. So give us your feedback. What do you think? What do you like? Where do you want us to grow? Hopefully you like and enjoy some of the new elements that will slowly be rolling out, like that hat that's on Jim Thornby's head right now. So, Jim,
it's coming. It's coming. As Prime says, it's coming. We're coming.
It's Prime.
And I'm most excited to have you back in the home studio here, so we're not having you deal with hotel Wi-Fi. Sometimes you just gotta make the best of it. But enjoy.
That's a great call. Yeah, so big love to all the Marriotts and Hyatts out there and Hiltons that I've been staying in. The facilities like Pitt and Michigan State and all the random places. I think we did one at on the field at Indiana Stadium.
Yep.
So a lot of love to everybody across. This is the last time I'm going to be hopefully doing this from the road for a little bit, Jim.
At least for the in season. Out of season, who knows? Maybe you'll be doing one from Bali come in the off season.
Yeah. We'll put a poll up. Where should we go internationally to do an episode from? But I love y'all, Jim. I'm so grateful for you as we build this thing. It really has been fun and energizing. And now here we go. Here comes Cal in the ACC. Your Arizona Wildcats in the Big 12, and my Pitt Panthers still in the ACC. And of course, we know what's going on in the Big 10. But from the headquarters at Nike to all of you in your homes, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Lots of love. Peace.